Welcome back to another episode of Mile High Brew Review. I'm Mike Trinidad, and today we venture to Green Bay, Wisconsin to speak to Stillmank Brewing Company, which is owned and operated by Erin and Brad Stillmank. Let's chat with Brad and find out a bit more about the origins and the beers of Stillmank Brewing Company. We've come to Stillmank Brewing Company, and we've got Brad here, who is the lead brewer and owner. Brad, tell us a little bit about what got you into brewing.
I fell in love with brewing actually out west. I was a kid living in the mountains in Durango, Colorado, going to school, and I found that most of my buddies were drinking big 22-ounce bottles of beer, and I was kind of the kid with the coin for a 12-pack or whatever I could get my hands on. And they were really excited about the beers that they were drinking, but I just never could figure out how to pony up the cash for a $5 bottle when I could get a 12-pack, right? So I thought, why don't I try and figure out how to make it myself? And so I stirred up a pot on the stove in the house that I was renting with some of my buddies, and the first batch tasted pretty good. I mean, it wasn't, terrible. It wasn't amazing, but it was pretty good.
What kind was it?
It was a red,
okay.
Just like standard red kit, homebrew. My buddies drank it all with me right away. Maybe because it was free. I don't know.
That's great.
They all said it was good, so I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. And there was plenty of batches after that home brewing that didn't turn out quite so nice, and there was lots that were fun to drink too. But that's really what got me into it, was home brewing. I think it's a similar story for a lot of other brewers in my age group.
I heard a rumor that you had worked previously at Scott Brewing Company in Colorado.
Yep, I was fortunate enough to work for those guys after I was done with college. Got a job there and was there with them for about 4 years. It was a blast working for them, and that's really where I came to, okay, this is what I want to do as a career. I just enjoy doing this. And so, I had my mind made up at that point and decided to then go back to school for brewing. Did some coursework with UC Davis in brewing and packaging, and really wanted to further develop what I knew and what I could do in a brewery.
Awesome. So you worked there, you did some schooling,
Yep.
And then you decided to open up Stillmank.
It took a long time for us to plan, fundraise. It's one of those that you got a lot of capital going in right from the start. You got to make sure all the ducks are lined up.
What made you choose Green Bay in particular?
Yeah, good question. So I grew up in the Milwaukee area, so I'm a Wisconsin kid to begin with. So coming back to Wisconsin was kind of coming back home. My folks are still down there, so we're a couple hours away from them, which is pretty cool. But we didn't want to be next door to my folks, and so Green Bay was a couple hours distance, and it felt comfortable. And we were coming from Durango, which was the awesomest mountain town you could ever live in, to 100,000 people in Green Bay, and it felt like a big city, but it really isn't. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's just because we were coming from such a small town to okay, there's 100,000 people here, holy cow. There's an Olive Garden down the street, what? Just the silly things, but it was okay, cool, this is going to be a fun town to live in. There's a lot more to do here. And there was 2 breweries that were operating and making great beer here when we first kind of came to check out what Green Bay was. We were going, holy cow, Durango's got 5 or 6 breweries. And we're 15,000 people, and here we're 100,000 people, and there's 2,
right.
And they're both pubs. Nobody's making production beer. So it was what's going on is good. There's culture for beer here. The breweries in town were making great beer and still are, but you just knew there's more. I mean, we're Wisconsin. We like beer,
right?
So we felt like there was easily more room for more breweries to be in this area. So the building that we're in right now, I bought in April 1st of 2014.
Okay.
Went from April to August. This used to be an indoor lumberyard, so turning it into a brewery, installing the equipment, X, Y, and Z. It was August 10th, I think, of 14 that we were brewing our first batch in here. And then so on and so forth. From there, before I had this up and going, I was working for a beer wholesaler here in the area, getting to know the accounts, getting to know the bars and the stores where our product could be sold. learning the other brands and what people were buying. And while I was doing that, I had started up a contract deal with a brewery in Milwaukee to make one brand of beer for me that I'd sell up here. So I kind of like had a brand already going and on tap at a bunch of bars around here, or in the Green Bay area anyway, before we signed and had this up and running. And in that time frame between April when we took the building and August when we started brewing, all those contracts, we took apart and moved our licenses and stuff. The guys in Milwaukee that we were brewing with, fantastic. They really helped us get our company started by letting us use their equipment. And it was a really mutual, great time for us to go, because when I was taking my production out of their facility, their brands were just taking off and they didn't need me in their way anymore, and it was just like everybody, it worked out great. It was awesome.
Nice.
So yeah, a lot of things kind of coming together at the right time a couple years back to get us off the ground in the right way.
So you were saying a little bit about how you were kind of discovering a bit about what kind of beers Green Bay likes.
Yeah.
What have you found?
Yeah, well, certainly just like the rest of the country, maybe the rest of the world at this point, IPA is hot.
Yep.
Kind of goes without saying these days. We've tried to brew a lot of things that are not extreme, but not totally typical either. Our flagship brand we call Wisco Disco. It's an ESB. I love ESB as a style. Wisco actually is brewed with a little bit of lactose too, so it's definitely kind of like a goofy take on the category. It's won quite a few awards, so I know it's like seated pretty well in the category we're selling it as with ESB. And our customers around here are really digging it. So ESB for me is like our big deal. We certainly do brew some IPAs. Coffee porter is a big one for us. So, and just working with local ingredients and other local businesses to make sure that the pints of beer that we're selling and people are paying for, we're turning that money around to the same community by buying all the resources and raw materials we can from around town. So a lot of the beers that we're making, in one way or another, are influenced by what's available locally here.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
So freshest ingredients come from local places.
Yeah.
Keeping that dollars in local.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a big part to the business, is just making sure that, the brewery's thriving. It should be the town that supports us gets to thrive along with it as a return. So
Definitely.
Yep.
So with regards to the beers that you guys make and you have made, what's your favorite style personally?
That ESB style for me is probably like my go-to as like an average, but it depends on the mood, what we're having for dinner, that kind of stuff. How the Packers are doing.
So you're a big Packers fan?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
Yeah, got to be in this town.
You gotta be, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to say to people that are coming out here to kind of welcome them into this community?
Like we had mentioned before, we do put a lot of emphasis on making sure we're sourcing local. So if you really want a good taste and local flavor of what Green Bay has to offer, as far as something in your beer glass, buying some of our beers are going to give you all that, whether it's the coffee that's roasted down the street or the apples we're picking from some of our cider beers that are from orchards the other way down the street. To the honey that's, the bees are flying around our neighborhoods too, making the honey for some of our honey beers. So there's all that kind of stuff. If you get the local flavor by meeting our customers and our buddies in the tap room, and swilling on some of the stuff that we're making with local ingredients.
Definitely. So when you come out here to Stillmank, go ahead and try the beers, and what you're trying is pure local beers.
Yeah, cheers that.
Definitely. Cheers it is. Thanks again for your time, and come on down to Stillmank Brewing Company.